Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to High Praise Christian Church Men of Standards. This is a show that trains leaders. Leaders come in all shapes and forms. Leaders control. Leaders are really in the kingdom of discipleship. But God wants you to be a disciple. And here at High Praise, that's what we teach. High Praise Christian Church teaches disciples, not members. And this course enhances that training. I'm your host and teacher, Dr. Richard Forbes. And once again, I want to welcome you to this class. Last week, we went over the 5 principles of a disciple. And we use your hand as an example to remember. We're going to go over them, and we're going to get into this week's lesson. We said last week that the palm is Christ, the center. This is Christ. Your thumb is the body. Your index finger is nature's. Acceptance, your second finger is acceptance of salvation. The ring finger is a source of authority. And the little finger is the 5-on-5 principle. We also went over the 5 stages of spiritual growth. And as a leader, you have to know where your members are, your disciples are. So you can bring them up to that next level and know how to handle them. The first one we said was the honeymoon stage. That's the stage where everybody's, they're excited. They just can't wait. They have given themselves to Christ. They've been baptized, and they just feel good about everything. The flight stage is the next. And this stage is the stage where you go through, and we all want to go through this. The church hurt, you put everything into the church, and they have what you would say let you down. But you have to realize that you're not there for people. You're there to build the kingdom. You're there to serve Christ. But sometimes we get mixed up in our feelings, our emotions, and when things don't go our way, we're ready to flee and run. Next is the doubting stage. This stage is where if a leader ever sees one of your disciple trainees, this is when you definitely have to step in and reassure them by having them study John 14:26. You have to help them understand that salvation is a process. It's not something that you snap your fingers and you have it. It doesn't work that way. The doubting stage, that's when you doubt everything. You went to one church and they said one thing, and then you go to another church and they say another thing, and you start doubting. You start doubting everything that you have heard because you don't know what to believe anymore. Once again, as a leader, when you see that, you direct them to John 14:26. The fifth stage that you go through, the fourth stage, I'm sorry, search for what is right. That usually comes after the doubting stage when you doubt everything. That's when you go searching. You search for what is really the truth. That's when I usually tell disciples, this is when you really have to pray. You have to pray real hard during this time, and you have to, like I said, go to John 14:26, and really, really say, God, show me the way. And the fifth is the silent Christian stage. This stage here, a lot of people go through it. You get in a church, or you get around seasoned saints, as we call them, and you feel inadequate. You feel that, that you can't measure up to their knowledge, their understanding. So you sit back and, you're very silent. When you call on to pray or do anything or give your opinion, you don't know what to say. You don't know how to react because you don't want to act in a way that you think that you don't know. But I'm here to tell you, as someone that went through that stage, as long as you believe in the Father, as long as you believe in the Son, no answer is really wrong. Everybody has a spiritual growth they have to go through. And we as leaders, we have to know this. We have to know where our disciples in training are. We have to encourage them to stay in the Word. We have to encourage them to let God use them. We have to encourage them to get down on their knees and just ask God, use me. Don't be afraid. There is really, if you think about it, nothing wrong. It's just the stage that you're in at the time. And you're going to fall in one of those 5 categories. The majority of people that you do meet in your disciple training class will be in the doubting stage. Some will be just searching for what is right. And a lot of people in the flight stage. It's a lot of disciples. I'm not going to call them members, I'm calling them disciples that have been church hurt. and they don't know what to do. We as leaders have to ensure them of who they are. So that brings us to this week's lesson. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about the disciples' cross. And one thing I can say, don't be confused about what the disciples' cross is. But before I get into detail about the disciples' cross, I want to say this. People say, what is a disciple? The New Testament uses the term disciple 3 times. First is general, a general term used to describe a committed follower of a teacher or a group. If you read Mark 2:18, it says, John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting. Some people came and asked Jesus, how is it that John's disciples and the disciples of the Pharisees are fasting, but yours are not? The second in the New Testament, disciple, let's say, refers to Mark 3:14 in the margin. He appointed 12 people and made them apostles, that they might be with him, and that they might go out and preach and have the authority to drive out demons. Jesus also used disciples to describe a follower who meets his requirements. He says that his disciples must forsake families, possessions, or anything that might keep him from following him. Let's think about this. Christ wants you to have him as your number one. The center goes back to the hand. The center. He's number one in your life. And if you ever study God's divine order, you will find that it's Christ, man, woman, family, church. You know, a lot of people don't want to forsake these things to follow Christ. They want to hold on. And that's one of the things that we do today. We want to hold on. There's always a battle. Especially when you want to give yourself to Christ as a disciple. You have to forsake a lot of things. You have to go through a lot of things. And a lot of us don't want to do that. It's almost like the old saying back in the day, I want to have my cake and eat it too. Christ must be number one in your life. Christ must be the center of your life. So sometimes you have to forsake your friends, forsake your family, your house, your car, your money, but we're not ready to do that. As a disciple of Christ, these are some of the things that he's requiring us to do. Now we go to the disciples' cross. As I said, the disciple cross starts in the middle, Christ. But remember, you cannot become a disciple unless Christ is number one on your priority list. You have to stop, you have to pray that you have to put him really at the head of your table. You have to put him first in everything you do. It's like you know he doesn't want you to smoke or drink, but you still smoke and drink. You have to forsake that to become a disciple. And now, all of us struggle with something. Let me say that. We all struggle with something in life, be it cigarettes, be it pornography, be it something. We are not perfect. That's why there's always a constant battle with the two natures. You have the nature of the flesh, and you have the nature of the spirit. But you have to learn how to forsake that natural. You have to learn how to control it and put it on the back burner to feed your spirit. And one way we as leaders have to help our disciples feed it is to keep them in the Word. Have them to study the Word. Have them to memorize verses. Today, I want to read a verse to you. There's three verses because I want really go over three verses. And these three verses are really to me, when I was taking this class, me the essence of who God really wants you. He wants you to be obedient. He wants you to love one another, and he wants you to bear fruit. So we're going to go right now to John 15:5. I am the vine, you are the branches. If a man remains in me, and I in him, he will bear much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. You have to be in him. This is what he wants you to do. He wants you to be in him. He wants you to be obedient to him. He wants you to love one another. John reading up on our obedience. That's Luke 6:46. Why do you call me Lord and do not what I say? Understand, to be a disciple, you have to understand that Christ is number one, and a certain thing he's going to ask you to do for him. If he is your Lord, he is your Savior, then you have to be obedient to him. And goes back to them two natures again. Part you going to want to do it, part you're not going to want to do it. That's the battle. But if you feed your spirit man, if you feed your spiritual man inside you, it'll be so easy to walk away with certain things. Some you can do just like that, some it makes some time. But it can be done. John 15:8. This is my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourself to be my disciple. I'll read that again. This is my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit. See, he wants you to succeed. He wants you to succeed, to bear nothing but good fruit. Not rotten fruit, good fruit. To stand up all upright, to do the right thing. Excuse me. See, you know when you're tapping on something because there's always something to try to stop you from giving the word. But I'm going to tell you now, the devil's a lie. All of a sudden, I got sick. But it's not going to stop me from teaching this class and helping somebody out here to become a disciple. This is what I'm here to do. And nothing is going to stop you. The Father wants you to be successful. The Father wants you to bear fruit. John 13, 34, 35. A new command I give you. Love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this all men will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Love one another. I found out in my walk that love conquers everything. God wants you to love even your enemies. One of the things I try to tell people that are, as you say, church first, if you love the Father, you love the Son, you will love the creation. We are not perfect, far from it. I feel that when you come to be as perfect as you can, you will not be. As long as you are on this earth, you have a purpose. And I tell all the disciples when I talk to them that you have a purpose. You have a purpose to glorify and magnify the Father and the Kingdom. Everybody has a purpose. But to find your purpose, you have to surrender yourself to the Father. You have to ask Him to use you. You have to ask Him for guidance, for wisdom. Because He's going to tell you. He's going to tell you. One of the things that I found in my walk, that everything the Father tells me is for my good. I may not want to accept it. I may not want to understand it. Well, I do want to understand it, but I may not understand what He's trying to do. But it goes back to being obedient to what He's telling you, what He's teaching you. Because He's going to teach you. He's going to teach you how to get out of any situation. Because He loves His children. And we are His children. He just wants you to surrender yourself to Him. He wants you to stand up and walk upright. Because it says, if you walk upright, you will not withhold anything from you. And that what we all should be striving for, to be like our Savior Jesus Christ. And if you think about it, the requirements that He's asked for you, all the things He's asked for you to forsake, He did it. did. There's a story in the book, the Bible, that he was about 12 years old and he went off from his mother and father and they couldn't find him. And he was talking to people, he was spreading the gospel. And when they caught up with him, they said, wait a minute. And he told them, I'm in my father's business. I'm taking care of my father's business. And that is what we have to start doing. Taking care of our father's business. And our father's business as disciples is going out, winning souls, going out, letting the world see the Christ in us. That's what I feel a disciple really is. Helping others know Christ. Because if you think about it, he took 12 men that didn't know each other, and from all walks of life, and he would make them members. He made them disciples, his disciples. And that's what we should be doing. Making disciples out of everything. Teaching people how to fight the teenagers. And we as leaders, that's what we're supposed to be doing. Fighting for one another. A good friend of mine used to always say when we get together, iron sharpens iron. We would sharpen each other to the point that, when we saw each other, we all had said, hey, what do you think about that? Okay, let's do this. We sharpen each other. We analyze things. Then we analyze one day so much, my wife had to say, y'all analyze too much. But we kept each other, we kept each other steady thinking, steady wanting knowledge, being excited. And that's what we as leaders have to instill into our disciple training. Get them back to that point of being in the honeymoon stage. Get them back there. And I'm not going to say it's easy, because it's not. But you have to know what level they're on. You have to know exactly how they feel. You have to learn how to be obedient. See, one thing, when Christ is in your life, you have a lifelong relationship with him that is natural. Because really, if you think about it, greater is he that's in you. So he's already really in you. He's already there. I tell a lot of disciples and friends, you have to learn how to activate what's in you. Get in a Bible-based church, a deliverance church, and it will come out. It will come out. It's a thing where you want to be hungry for Christ. And you're going to hear me say a lot of that. Be hungry for Christ, because you have to get people to that back to that honeymoon stage. We have to get them there. And it's not going to be easy. It's not. In John 15:10, you are reminded of his love. In John 14:21, you see that the Father loves you and he reveals himself to you. That's John 14:21. John 13:35, 34, 35, he shows you that you are a disciple. And John 13:17, he tells you how blessed you are. In these four scriptures, I usually tell people that are in my disciple training class to memorize them. That's John 15:10, John 14:21, John 13:34, 35, and John 13:17. Remember, obeying Christ's commands is the key to you becoming a disciple. It's key. That is the key. In Philippians 2:13, it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose. That's the obedience. That's the obedience. And that is the thing that we have to understand. The three things that, and I'm going to go back over them again, is obedience, love, and fruit. That is the key. That is the key. To being a disciple. You have to be obedient to the word. You got to love others, and the fruit will come after that. That's the key. That is the key. That is the key. But on the disciples' cross, go over that. I'm gonna go in depth next week, more in depth into, but I want to touch on the verses, the four verses that are the key to the cross itself. As you know, Christ is the center of your life. But in prayer, I'm going to give you the four verses that I really would want you to study these four verses, understand them. So if you get these four verses I'm getting ready to give you, you will understand the disciples' cross. Prayer is John 15:7. Fellowship is John 13:34-35. The Word is John 8:31-32. And witness is John 15:8. These verses are the essence of the disciple cross. Those four verses, if you learn them, understand them, and apply them, you're on your way. So those are the essence of the cross, of the disciple cross. Those four verses will teach you what you need to know. And next week, we're going to look at each one of those verses in detail. Each one of those verses will teach you what you need to know for you to fight the enemy. Those four right. When I first heard them and I studied them, I'm shocked. Because when I first started my disciple class, I basically had to learn on my own. I didn't have a prayer partner, which I won't get into that for the last 10 minutes, how important that is to have someone that can help you understand. Somebody that even if it's on your level in the basic stage, someone to help you along. So when I started, I struggled. A couple times I even wanted to give up. But see, that's the trick of the enemy. Just like tonight, all of a sudden, my stomach got hurt. All of a sudden, oh man, I'm getting sick. But see, the devil's a lie. See, the things that are being taught at a high praise Christian church, the devil don't want you to know. So he's going to try his best to stop this class, this fellowship, because he knows it. His time is up. His time is up. He's already lost. You can't win. The stronger we get in the word, the stronger we get to help each other out. Like I said, iron sharpens iron. The more we get into his word, the more we sharpen one another. The Lord he fits. You can make it. You can. You can. And that's the thing that we have to start realizing is he can't win. Yes, times are going to get hard. Yes, like I said, when I started out, I wanted to give up several times. But I had to go back and pick myself up and say, yeah, that's what he wants you to do. He wants you to give up. He wants it to make it hard for you. So you can quit. So you can change your mind. But I'm here to tell you, yes, it's going to get hard. Yes, you decide to become a disciple of Christ. It's going to be hard. But greater is the one that's in you than the one in the world. I had to tell myself that when I first began. Greater is the one that's in me. Greater. Because I'm telling you like this. In Genesis, it states, let us make man in our own image. So if you think about it, God went inside him, took his DNA out, put it in his clay body, illuminating and born his man. That's what that means. That each and every one of us has a part of him in us. So if we have a part of the Father in us, we need more than comfort. We're more. We are the head and not the tail. We have dominion over all. And this is what we have to start acting. Not that we control, because God controls. Okay? He controls it all. We have dominion over the earth. We don't control him. And that's another thing that we're trying to do is control him like we
He's on our time and good is up and down. But the more you try to get to know him, the more joy I'm gonna tell you comes to you. I'm gonna tell you joy. I'm gonna tell you my experience. When I gave myself to Christ, yeah, a lot of things hit me. A lot of time I was discouraged. But I'm gonna tell you, he equipped me to handle every situation that came my way. And that's the same thing I'm telling you out here. You're already in one of that. You just got to surrender yourself to the Father. He already went before you and fixed everything. You just got to walk in it. But we as church leaders, we have to start empowering our disciples to understand so they can go out empowering more. So it's, say I empower 3 people, okay? And each one of them empower 3 people. Then each one of them empower 3 people. Okay? That's all God is asking us to do. Not control, but to empower. To empower. So remember, and I'm going to go into more detail next time we're together, next class. John 15:7, John 13:34-35, John 8:31-32, and John 15:8. Remember, iron sharpens iron. Remember, you're never alone. Because Christ is always going to be with you. God is always going to be with you. You just have to surrender yourself. And once you start surrendering yourself, no, it's not going to be peaches and cream. Because I'm going to tell you, more will come at you. But if you study, understand, and learn those 4 verses that I just gave you, and surrender yourself to the Father, each day is going to get a little sweeter. More joy is going to come to you. You can smile no matter what's going on wrong around you because greater is the one that's in you. So until next week, I'm Dr. Richard Forbes. This is High Praise Christian Church, Ministers Leadership Training. I'll see you next week. May God bless you.